For decades, people laughed at Serge Nubret's training method. Many were saying, oh, he was doing too many sets, he was doing too many reps, he rested too short between the sets, the weights were very light, he didn't use heavy weights, he didn't train to failure. And modern bodybuilding says this simply cannot work. And today, as we all know, everything is completely opposite that Serge Nubret used to do. And yet, Serge Nubret managed to build one of the most iconic physiques of all time. Not just big, but also aesthetic, symmetrical, proportionate, well-rounded, balanced, ripped, timeless. And now, modern science is slowly proving that actually Serge Nubret understood muscle growth better than many others. And I know that personally, because I trained in the completely opposite way until I met Serge Nubret in Paris. In the beginning of my bodybuilding career for years, I followed heavy-duty training principles. I trained with low volume. I didn't do many sets. I was always going with maximum intensity. I was always going to failure. Minimal number of sets. I listened to Mike Mentzer and adopted his philosophy that you don't need to do many sets, that you just need to do one set to failure, that will be enough for an exercise. So for example, if I was doing 5 exercises for chest, my workout will be only 5 sets, but every set will be simply to failure. But then I realized that I wasn't actually progressing. After seeing some bodybuilding shows, I was completely shocked because these guys that I've seen on the stage, they were looking completely different than me. I was chunky, I was fat, I was a lump. I could have lifted heavy weights, and I was happy with it. I had a diet which was predominantly carbohydrates, as Mike Mentzer advised. I was training 3-4 times per week. But then when I saw these guys, they were completely different. And I started doubting that training system and that diet altogether. So this propelled me to start traveling around the world and start learning from the best that I could have seen. And this is how I ended up in 1982 visiting Serge Nubret in Paris. And what I saw in his gym completely shocked me, because there were a lot of people who were looking extremely good. They were all lean, very muscular, veins popping out on their arms, on their chests. Everybody had six-pack. And I was the one who was looking very different. I was very opposite. So I didn't look like those guys. So those guys were bodybuilders, and I don't know what I was, what I could have been called. So the training method was absolutely shocking for me. First of all, they were doing enormous volume. They were doing 20, 30 sets per muscle group. And I couldn't imagine doing that because I was doing 5-6 sets per muscle group, and that was all. This is what I thought was the best. But then I saw people who were much better than me, and they were going up to 30 sets per muscle group. Also, they were doing higher number of reps, while I was doing around 6 to 8 reps max, usually going down to sometimes 5 or 4. They were all doing 10, 12, 15 reps for upper body, and then for legs they were doing even higher number of reps. Also, during those sets, they were focusing on tension, so every set was full concentration, long duration of the set due to the high number of reps, and absolutely phenomenal constant tension. In my scenario, that wasn't the case. So their physiques looked completely different. They were all not just big, but muscular, round. They were more aesthetic, not just bulky like I was. And I simply thought this just doesn't make sense. Because everything I learned, read from the magazines, read from Mike Mentzer's books, was actually that if you want a big muscle, you have to use heavier weights. Obviously, low reps are superior than high reps. Volume, higher number of sets, as Serge Nubret was doing, and Arnold and Sergio Oliva, that was called junk. And everything that you would achieve with that type of training, with a junk volume, as he said in the magazines and also in the books that I read by Mike Mentzer, was called junk volume. So I thought, these guys are doing everything wrong, but the problem was that these guys looked phenomenal while I was looking wrong. So I realized actually that Serge Nubret understood something that many people didn't. And the most important difference is that Serge Nubret understood that the weights are not most important. There are other factors which are more important, and now modern science is even slowly proving it. And first of all, this is tension. The muscle has to be exposed to constant time and tension during every set. Then you have fiber recruitment. That means that if set is not intense enough, if the tension is not long enough, you will not recruit as many muscle fibers as possible. Then you have to accumulate fatigue. So fatigue cannot be accumulated in 1, 2, 3 sets. You need more sets to accumulate fatigue, and it comes out that higher number of sets are actually contributing to more muscle growth. This is coming out of modern scientific research, and I will attach in the description all these scientific papers that you can read and get this information even more in detail. Then there is something called metabolic stress. So if you perform higher number of reps and higher number of sets, obviously you will stimulate sarcoplasmic growth, which is very important, especially for bodybuilding, while lower number of reps will stimulate only myofibrillar growth, which is responsible for strength. Now, sarcoplasmic growth caused by higher number of reps is not only benefit that you will get from higher volume will also give you myofibrillar growth because of those last reps which will be close to failure, maybe 1 rep shy of failure. So those reps will stimulate myofibrillar growth as well as sarcoplasmic growth. So the benefits of this type of training that Serge Nubret understood, most likely instinctively, were absolutely undeniable and therefore good. Now we are proving that scientifically, but we had a shift for decades that people switched to heavier weights, less volume, and ended up, obviously, as you all know, injuring themselves, as many did, and not achieving greatest results. The biggest mistake that people make is assuming that Serge trained light, but he didn't. What Serge Nubret understood was that muscle does not count plates. So he was training with maximum tension, full focus, high number of reps, short rest between the sets, high number of sets for every muscle group. I was watching him myself. I watched him every day doing every single muscle group. I spent a month in his gym watching him every single day. And that wasn't light. That was very, very intense. I could have seen actually his veins popping out while he was doing triceps and biceps and chest and pull-ups for back. And that was nothing light, or even better to say, there was nothing easy about that type of training. When I tried to do that, I simply couldn't do the fraction of volume that he did. So I understood immediately that this type of training is extremely difficult, and most likely most people didn't want to train like that and don't want to train like that now, simply because this type of training is extremely difficult and requires full focus and concentration. Serge Nubret didn't use the phone, didn't talk to anybody. He had a watch. He would look and measure time between the sets. Before his workout, there were a few of us sitting there watching him. He would say, guys, if you want to ask me something, ask me after the workout. I'm not going to talk to anybody during my session. Don't disrupt me. Don't upset me with your questions. I need to focus. So we were all like hypnotized watching him doing things, whatever he was doing. But that workout wasn't easy and it wasn't light. It was right. Now, he created enough stress to develop these magnificent muscles simply through duration of every set, through tension to blood flow, also fatigue accumulation and repeated contractions. So that is not going to happen in 3-4 sets for major muscle groups. You need more sets. Most of the guys train anywhere around 20 to 30 sets in his gym. He would train 20 to 30 most of the time, but closer to 30. But sometimes he would even do 40. And I watched him doing bench press once in his chest workout. He did 40 sets of bench press within an hour. So just bench press 40 sets. And there is nothing easy about it. So you can't call it light or heavy. This is completely irrelevant. The only weight that matters is actually right weight. So when people start juggling with these concepts of light and heavy, and you are a macho guy if you're doing heavy, you're a real man. But if you're doing less than super heavy, now this is for girls. Absolutely not true. The truth is actually opposite. And if you don't believe me, give it a go. Do what I'm doing now and what Serge used to do. Do 30 sets for chest or 30 sets for back, and then come back to me within 30 to 40 minutes, 35, 40 minutes, and then come back and say what was harder, to do that or to do 6, 7 sets with maximum weights, resting 5, 6 minutes between the set. So, guys, Serge managed to develop all this phenomenal body simply by ignoring all this dogma that people are completely obsessed now. Dogma like numbers, ego lifting, 1 rep max, explosive cheating reps, super heavy weights, long rest between the sets. So basically he did everything opposite. As I often said, muscle has to be the end and weights have to be the means to achieving that end. And Serge Nubret did exactly that. So he didn't use his muscles and his body just in order to lift weights. He used weights in order to develop his muscles. And this is probably the best advice that I can give you from my own experience and also from experience of Serge Nubret. So make sure that your muscles are the end, the target, and the weight is just the means, is the tools. Don't do it differently. Don't do it opposite. So let me tell you now what Serge Nubret actually used to do. Most of the time he would train around 30 sets, sometimes less, but sometimes even higher. So if we say around 30 sets, that would be very accurate. He did high number of reps. He was usually around 12. 12 was an average number of reps. Sometimes he would drop to 10, but sometimes he would go even higher. He would go up to 20 reps. So he played with that, depending on the day. He was very instinctive. So he didn't rest long between the sets. I remember watching him doing biceps, triceps, supersets. He was doing cable curls and push down on the machine. So he would start with cable biceps curls. After he would do 12 to 15 reps, he would go to triceps push down, do the same thing without any rest. And then he would rest anywhere around maybe 15, 20 seconds. Never more than 30, and then he would go into another superset. And he kept doing that for 45 minutes. So you count now how many sets were there, probably over 30 sets. And his arms, you all know how big and good his arms were. It's simply unbelievable. He also used to train twice per day. His pattern was usually to train abs in the morning. He would come and do crunches or twist with the bar on his back, maybe up to an hour, and this was his cardio workout, as he would say. Also, he would do training in the evening, every muscle. He would train twice per week. This is what he did. I tried that. It was very difficult. I did it occasionally for a few shows, but I have to say that this is not sustainable. So it's very difficult to train every muscle twice per week, especially with this high number of sets. So I advise, as you probably know from my other videos, that you train every muscle once per week, because this will allow you enough time to recover not just your muscles but also your connective tissues, your ligaments, tendons, cartilages, and also your central nervous system. But Serge Nubret used to train every muscle twice per week. That doesn't mean that you have to do the same thing. And I devoted a whole video on that subject. Should you train like Serge Nubret? So you need to pick up the principles and then apply them to yourself, apply them for your benefit, because you are not Serge Nubret and you're not Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it will be very difficult to actually copy these guys and train like exactly as they did, because they were unique specimen. You can't just copy them. The best that you can do is listen to my explanations and take the principles. Principles are high volume, high number of reps, short rest, full tension, full contraction, maximum focus and concentration. So take these principles on board and then try to get yourself the best possible training system. So everything that Serge Nubret did, modern bodybuilding will call overtraining. But this is an irony. Actually, today, people overtrain themselves more than Serge Nubret used to do. He didn't overtrain himself. Obviously, he was growing and he was one of the most achieved one of the most iconic physiques ever. Now, people are actually overtraining today by doing everything opposite. So people are, first of all, the biggest stress to your central nervous system is going to be going to failure in every set, in every workout. So that level of stress will simply destroy your central nervous system, and you won't be able to recover for days, for weeks. And if you keep doing this 4 or 5 times per week, you will constantly be in that overtraining mode. Your cortisol will go through the roof, the body will fight to recover, and the body will never grow. Even if you take steroids, doing this super high intensity training, going to failure in every set, in every session, training every muscle twice per week is absolute disaster for recovery. And this may be the biggest problem why so many people, despite putting so much effort in the gym, still do not achieve results they are expecting. So what is important to remember is that Serge Nubret never trained to failure. Never. And this is something that basically is shocking people, because modern fitness culture is obsessed with failure. But science now explains clearly that what counts is total volume. And when total volume is equated, training to failure often provides little or no additional benefits. So in many cases, it increases fatigue more than the stimulus. So you want to increase the stimulus. You don't want to increase fatigue. And I explained it in many videos. When you start lifting heavy weights and use all these super high intensity techniques, you are doing junk volume, because those sets will never be perfect. Every set after a single set to failure will be junk volume, because you will be in the exhausted state, and you will never be able to perform with full accuracy, consistency, focus, and concentration. So everything that you do after will simply just accumulate that exhaustion, and you will end up your session shattered. You will be exhausted, and you will think, oh, I must have done something great because I really feel completely done. But this is the trap. This is the mistake. And science is proving now clearly that this is absolutely not necessary. It's actually very bad for you. It's not going to give you any benefits. It's actually going to make you produce too much cortisol and constantly fight for recovery, for survival. This is not an environment in which your muscles will grow. Now, the modern research now shows that volume is the strongest predictor for muscle growth. So the numerous studies done by Brett Schenfield, also Jozo Grgic, and many others, which I will attach so you can read it if you want. And their research is showing consistently that more productive volume generally leads to more hypertrophy. And when I say more productive volume, I'm talking about high quality reps. So these quality reps are obviously in much higher number if you do more sets. So if you do 6 sets and you end up doing 4 quality reps in a set, this is going to be the last 3 or 4 reps before you reach failure, then you're going to end up at 24 quality reps. But what if you do 30 sets and then you have 4 quality reps per set? Now you're having 120 quality reps per session. And this is much higher growth stimulus. So remember that. This is what Serge Nubret did, not just Serge Nubret. Sergio Oliva did the same, Arnold did the same, and many, Franco Colombo, many others, and even later. So that volume and the number of quality reps is what creates muscle growth. So now is entirely up to you. So what matters is not super heavy weights and low reps. What matters is that you do high number of reps, as I suggest, 8 to 12 for upper body muscles, and anywhere 12 to 20, even more reps for legs, for quads. Now, the reason for benefit of this type of training is that you don't need super heavy weights. You just need to exhaust the muscle and reach that point that you're 1 rep shy of failure. And this is the most effective way to stimulate growth. So what Serge Nubret understood was that actually your muscles, they don't know how many plates are on the bar. They don't care about it. What they care is tension over time. So you need effective sets which will last enough to stimulate growth of most of the muscle fibers involved in that particular exercise. Serge obviously understood that what matters is tension, fatigue, and recruitment. And when you watch Serge Nubret training, you see that extraordinary control. He was always so focused, so concentrated about everything that he was doing. So there was no rushing, there was no ego lifting, never ever ego lifting, no just throwing weights in wrong form, cheating in order to lift heavier. It was simply constant muscular work, rep after rep, high number of reps, short rest between the sets, and then high number of sets. And this is why his physique looked the way it did. When today people talk about Serge Nubret, some of them, very famous bodybuilders, will simply say, Serge Nubret used to have amazing genetics. Well, I think it's a just cheap excuse. So many people had amazing genetics, but there was only one Serge Nubret. So maybe training has to do something with it, and obviously his diet. And absolutely yes, because if you look, as I do, and try to find those principles that most of these legends of golden era and also people who came after them in 80s, what they had in common was always that high volume training, high protein intake, medium to low carb diet, medium fat. So these are the principles that most of the legends in bodybuilding used to follow. And this is how you learn. You don't need these scientific experiments now to prove you that they were right. They were absolutely right, because not just one did it. Hundreds of them, top bodybuilders, legends, did it. And even now, when people are creating completely different metabolic environment by using huge amounts of steroids and growth hormone and insulin and stuff that golden era didn't even know because it didn't exist, even now with all these super powerful exogenic compounds, people are still benefiting most when they train high volume. As I suggest, every muscle once per week, anywhere from 20 to 30 sets for major muscle groups, and weight that is neither light nor heavy, but right. So what is the right weight is irrelevant, is arbitrary. For everybody is different. But what is most important is that control, time under tension, high number of reps, high number of sets, exactly what Serge Nubret did. So there is something that can upset many people, but I'm going to say that. And this is actually that many modern physiques no longer have that aesthetic quality of golden era. Yes, modern bodybuilders are larger, they're bigger, but they are not more aesthetic. Because I always say that nobody wants to look like modern champions, because they're simply oversized. Everybody wants to look like Serge Nubret, like Frank Zane, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sergio Oliva. This is not doubt, it's simply undeniable. But who wants to look like somebody who is 125, 30 kgs, can't even walk, can't go up the stairs, can't take the t-shirt off himself? Absolutely some supersized, monstrous physiques. Now, the major issue is obviously training. Training is very different now, and obviously high amount of exogenous compounds which have not been used during golden era. So while golden era physiques had that flow, shape, lines, balance, symmetry, conditioning, that's now completely gone. It doesn't exist anymore. If you look in last few years, for example, Mr. Olympia winners, and not just winners, but top 6 guys, they're just not in shape like people used to be in 70s and 80s and even in 90s. And I believe that one of the major reasons is that most of the modern bodybuilders are actually training more like powerlifters. The emphasis is on weights. They're busy training like that, attracting more attention. They become more popular doing heavy, super heavy weights. And they're trying to look like bodybuilders. So the clever ones are not doing that. I have to say people like, for example, Phil Heath, Dexter Jackson, Jay Cutler, they didn't do that. And they look great. And they are still looking great. They are still in great shape and in one piece. They didn't torn their tendons and ligaments simply because they train like bodybuilders. But the trend is now that a lot of people, not only professionals, but I'm talking mainly about average people, average wannabes, right, who are dreaming to become great bodybuilders, they're actually on the wrong path because they're simply training like powerlifters, not bodybuilders. So let me tell you a few words about my personal experience. As I said, I used to train low volume type of training system promoted by Mike Manser. I was doing heavy duty first 2-3 years of my bodybuilding journey. I became bigger, stronger, but I didn't look like a bodybuilder. I wasn't in shape. I wasn't dense. I couldn't see my veins, and I was also constantly stressed and tired because I couldn't recover from that workout. But I kept going. Also, I had injuries. I remember my lower back was injured often because of doing heavy squats, probably not in the best form, doing some deadlifts and very, very heavy bent over rows. So I also had shoulder injuries because of doing a very heavy incline chest press and also very heavy bench presses, because it was all about the weight. And, being injured was the part of the story, was normal. But I simply realized that is not going to take me anywhere, because I came across bodybuilders and saw that they are training very differently. And then when I visited Serge Nubret, I completely changed my workout. So I started training with higher number of reps, a much higher number of sets. I was trying to rest as little as necessary between sets. So that wasn't easy in the beginning. And it's not going to be easy for you who are trying to do that right now. But it will take a bit of time for your respiratory system, for your cardiovascular system to adapt to that, because, as I said, there is nothing easy about high volume workouts. It's much harder than low volume workouts. So you need time to adapt. And this is something very important to understand. And once I started training higher volume, I started changing. I changed dramatically. It probably took about a year. I switched my diet. I started eating high protein, medium fat, very low carbs. I started losing body fat, and obviously high volume workouts helped me build very, very different physique. And within a few years, I was on the stage winning shows, thanks to this dramatic change from low volume, super high intensity workouts, diet that was predominantly carbohydrates, about 70%, 20% protein, 10% fat. I switched to completely different diet, which was high protein, medium fat, low carbs or zero carbs before the show, and results were inevitable. And as you can see, I ended up competing 46 times and even winning 17 titles. But I have to say that we are seeing something fascinating, and this is the fact that more and more people, especially people who are more serious about bodybuilding, they are returning to Serge Nubret principles. Also, people who change their training method because of accepting my advice, they're coming back and commenting on my channel, and you can read that. And that's simply, there are hundreds of comments every single day where people are saying, once I have changed my training method from low volume to high volume, as you recommend, the changes were immense. They were dramatic. In few weeks, I have changed completely. Now I've been doing 2-3 months, high volume, high number of reps, perfect form, resting short between the sets, and people are changing beyond recognition. And this is amazing. This is a great thing. because people are finally realizing that this dogma of heavy duty, super heavy, high intensity, high carb diets is simply a fake approach, is a delusion, and will definitely make you fat. People who say, oh, I've been training heavy duty, have amazing results, they never show any picture, any photos, so we can't even justify that. But also, people who joined my 90 days transformation challenge, the first one, the results were exceptional. And you will see, I'm doing the video soon with a winner of that challenge. You will see how much people have changed in 90 days. All of them have been training high volume, as I advised them, and all of them were on high protein, medium fat, low carb diet. So people are finally realizing that higher reps, controlled tension, perfect form, short rest between the sets, moderate load. Remember, there is not lightweight, heavyweight. Forget about this. There is only right weight. And what that weight is for you is completely irrelevant. What that weight is for somebody else doesn't matter. Different people can use different weights, which will be right weights for them. So you need right weight. Is the tool that you use in order to sculpt your body. So if that weight is too heavy or too light, nothing is going to happen. So you have to find the right weight. And another very important thing that I want you to understand is that most people who are commenting and benefiting from this type of training, Serge Nubret type of training, are mainly naturals and people over 40. So these demographics are simply showing something exceptional. People feel better, their joints are safe, they don't injure their tendons, the ligaments anymore, they're happy with training, they're enjoying it because they're finally getting that mind-muscle connection, which is very difficult to achieve with very heavy weights and super high-intensity training. And the benefits are enormous. Just read the comments. I have only to say that I'm simply delighted with the progress of all these people who are following my advice, which is actually high volume, as Serge Nubret did, and the benefits are overwhelming. So the biggest lesson that I've learned from Serge Nubret is that bodybuilding is not the violence against your body. Bodybuilding is about communication with the muscles. You need to be focused. You need to connect with the muscle that you're training. You need to feel the muscle, control the muscle. You need to accumulate tension and also accumulate work through high number of reps, high number of sets, and also short rest between the sets. And that's so important. I devoted a whole video about the rest. And I also learned from him that one should not really keep surviving heavier and heavier weights. And maybe that was the reason why Serge Nubret still inspires people today, more than decades later. And I believe that this is simply because Serge Nubret represented, first of all, aesthetics, control, balance, and artistry, not just mass. So guys, after 40 years in bodybuilding, competing 46 times, winning 17 titles, coaching over 3,500 clients, I have published for you 12 ebooks which are fully loaded with everything you always wanted to know about bodybuilding. So if you want to expand your knowledge and widen your horizons, start building muscle and burning fat finally, simply click on the link which is down in the comments and you can download my ebooks. Let me remind you once again that I have published for you also bodybuilding blueprint course, which is made of 8 videos in which I personally demonstrate and explain the most effective exercises for all major muscle groups. So if you want to learn how to train in perfect form and stop wasting time in the gym, simply click on that link down in the comments and you can access my bodybuilding blueprint course. So if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, like the video, share the video, send me your comments, and I will see you in the next video.